Welcome back to all my food warriors. Coach Joe here once again. Today we are going to be making one of the simplest pasta dishes of all time. This is pasta with roasted cherry tomatoes. Well, you can make these with any kind of roasted tomato. It really intensifies the flavors once we roast these tomatoes in the oven, but this is just a really simple way of using up some extra tomatoes. We've planted a bunch of tomatoes in the garden this year, and our cherry tomatoes have gone absolutely gangbusters. So we've been having some difficulty keeping up. This is one of the ways that we can use these kind of in quantity. Great, simple, healthy dish, weeknight meal. Just really a great alternative to use them up. So what we have here is I have a 13 by 9 inch casserole pan. This is oven safe pan. And I basically have one level of cherry tomatoes. So what I'm going to do to this, really simple. I've got a couple of cloves of garlic. I'm going to toss this in here as well. And I want to make sure I press it down to get right down to the bottom. And I have one chili pepper as well from the garden. So I'm just going to yank the little stem off there, and I'm going to push this down in here as well. Chili pepper completely optional. If you don't like the spice, by all means, feel free to remove it. If you're anything like me, even one isn't enough. But there are other people in the house who think differently, and so we strike a compromise. What we're going to do to this, very simple. We're just going to sprinkle this with a little bit of salt. And a little bit of freshly cracked black pepper. There we are. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take really good quality olive oil, and we're just going to add a little bit of olive oil here to our dish as well. This is all going to be part of our sauce. There we are. There we are. And essentially, we're about halfway done. This could not be simpler, could not be easier. What we're going to do is we're going to throw this into a nice hot oven. If you've got a non-convection oven, so if you got a little fan that operates at the back of your oven, you can put this in about 425. Without convection, without that little fan, I'd say maybe about 450. And what you want to do is to let these tomatoes cook down a little bit. You want them to blister and char a little bit on the top, darken in color, but you want the flavor to intensify. Once these tomatoes under that heat will rupture a little bit, some of that liquid will leach out, it will evaporate off, it will intensify in flavor. So this is a great way to get a really flavorful sauce very quickly. So I'm going to throw these in the oven anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. Important, you want to keep an eye on these, and once they've blistered and started to color along the top, and you start to see some residual liquid at the bottom that started to thicken, we are ready to go. So I will see you in about 45 minutes. We are back. Our tomatoes are just about ready to be pulled out of the oven. So I've done this on a countertop convection oven. It can be done literally in a toaster oven if you can. But we're just going to pull this out. There we are. Turn the heat off. Oh, beautiful. There we are. Look at that. Now that is what I'm talking about. Beautifully caramelized. You've got the juice from the tomato that started to leach out, mixing with the olive oil. You've got the garlic that's essentially slow roasted. You've got the chili that's slow roasted. This method will take some of that aggressive heat out of the chili. It's not going to be nearly as aggressive as if you would have eaten it raw. And so with that, all of these flavors are beautifully caramelized. They've intensified. And what we're going to do now, if you wanted to simply, take one of those handheld potato mashers and just kind of break this up, you could have this as a ready-made rustic pasta sauce completely as is. We're going to alter it up slightly. We're just going to let this cool for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we're going to put this into a blender with a little bit of fresh basil, and our sauce is just about there. What I've done is I've got a pot of water here heating up to cook our pasta. And we're going to bring everything together. So I'm just going to run out to the garden, grab a stalk of basil while this cools down for a couple of minutes, and I will see you in 2. All right, I've just grabbed our stalk of basil from the garden. We're just going to pull these leaves off and put them right into the bottom of our blender. There we are. Oh, the smell of fresh basil. Tomato and basil is the smell of summer. There we are. Make sure we pick all of these off. And there we are. So we'll set this aside. Now what we will do is we will start by pouring off some of that liquid first. There we are. Let's make sure we pour away from us so we don't get any of that stuff on us. There we are. And now what we'll do is we will get our spoon here. There we are. And we'll just help these tomatoes right into the blender. Now remember, we've already seasoned this. We've already added salt and a little bit of pepper. And we've got some olive oil in here as well, which is going to make an absolutely beautiful emulsion. Get every last drop that we can here. There we are. And we'll just put this guy off to the side. There we are. And now, love this. So I'm just going to run this through the blender quickly, and then we were going to get started on finishing our sauce. So I will see you in about 1 minute. Now we have blitzed our sauce in our blender. This is ready to go just as is. But in the event that you wanted to do a little something extra to the sauce, this is another variation as well. But this is ready to go exactly as is. It's got the garlic, it's got the tomatoes, it's got the basil, it's got a little bit of chili in there, it's got the olive oil. This is ready to season your pasta if and as required. Now, if we wanted to augment this just a tiny bit, I have one slice of, this is colpa that we make every year. This is essentially a cured pork product similar to capicolo. I had one slice lying around my fridge. It's about maybe a 1/4 of an inch thick. So all I want to do is I want to use this up. So I'm just going to slice this up and I'm going to add this to my sauce. Completely optional, completely unnecessary, but since we had it and we need to use it, we will simply be using it in this pasta sauce. There we are. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to slice this up into tiny pieces here, and this way it's going to flavor my sauce. Again, I'm not using this as a protein, I'm using this more as a seasoning in my dish. There we are. So all I'm going to do to start is I'm going to add this. This is probably, I don't know, 70, 80 grams maybe of colpa to my pan. This is just a cold pan, no oil. We're just going to get this on the heat. There we are. And we're just going to add a little bit of olive oil to the pan just to get it started. And remember, we've got an onion that we're going to saute up in here as well. There we go. So we will just get this working around our pan. And all we want to do is start to render some of the fat from the colpa and start to get just a little bit of color on there. Now in the meantime, I've got one white onion, and all I want to do here, again, is kind of a medium dice. So as I'm cutting through to the root end, I haven't cut all the way through. That root is what's keeping this onion intact, and this way it'll slice a whole lot easier. Keep those fingers curled back and out of the way. Oh, the smell is fantastic. So we're just going to give this a quick stir. And we should be ready to add our onion in about 1 minute. Meanwhile, onion a quick dice. There we are. All right. I think we are just about there. All right. All right, so what we will do, we'll get all of our onion in there as well. Alright. There we are. Now what we'll do is just give this a tiny bit of salt, because there is salt already in our sauce, and there is a little bit of salt in the copa as well, so we want to be somewhat mindful of that, and then we will test for salt a little bit later. There we are. So all we want to do now is just sweat down these onions, get them to be nice and translucent, soften them. They'll start to caramelize a little bit of their sugars. We don't want to get too much color on them. And then once these are beautifully softened, we pour in our sauce and we're done. And that's lunch. So we will just let this go for another 4 or 5 minutes as we wait for our water to come up to temperature. So I will see you in about 5 minutes. Our onions are beautifully translucent. What we're going to do now is we're simply going to add our sauce from our blender here. So we want to make sure we get every last bit of this. There we are. Get all of this in there. Oh, the smell is just phenomenal. There we are. And all we're going to do is we're going to pour this right in. Now, as I look at this, I'm sure we could have, maybe taken some chunks of onion and caramelized them in the oven with the tomatoes. This is home cooking. It's incredibly rustic. This is, there's no real recipe to this. This is, just an opportunity to use up what you have kicking around the house, either in the fridge or in our case, coming out of the garden. It's a great way to get some more vegetables in your diet. There we are. There we are. Now, if this was a little bit too loose, we could just simmer this here on the stove, but I think the consistency here is just fantastic. We are ready to go. So I'm going to turn this off because our water is not quite ready yet. Oh, love that. There we are. So I'm just going to give this quick taste for seasoning. Don't need any more salt, don't need any more pepper. All we need is a little bit of cheese and we are ready to go. So I'm going to check my water here. Get some good coarse sea salt. There we are. All right. So we are going to let this come up to the boil. We are going to boil our pasta to al dente. And then right as the pasta is being drained, I'm going to put the heat back on under here. Get this up to a simmer. Throw in our pasta. Merge everything together. And then we are ready to eat. So I will see you in about 10 minutes. All right, we are back. I think our pasta is done. So I've just turned the heat back up on our sauce just to heat it back through. We've got 500 grams of a good quality pasta. This is rigatoni that we're making today. But this sauce will lend itself well to virtually any kind of pasta. So suit yourself. Please yourself. yourself whatever you're in the mood for. So we're going to shut this off. There we are. And we will drain this off. There we are. All right. We will bring this over and put this right into our pan. There we go. Now we will incorporate this in. As always, we want to finish all of our pastas in the sauce whenever we can. This way, the starch that's on the surface of the pasta will thicken the sauce, and some of that sauce will cook into the pasta for the last 30 seconds or so of cooking. There we are. So we will keep stirring this around over medium-low heat. There we are. Oh, the smell of this, absolutely phenomenal. There we are. And lunch is ready. There we are. All right. So we will just turn this heat off. We'll get ourselves a spoon here. And let's serve this up. This will easily feed 4 hungry people. So we will stir this up. And let's get there we are. Look at that. Look at that. Look at the colors. So what we will do is get a little bit of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano. Again, this whole bowl is about 100 grams worth of cheese. It looks fluffy because it was grated on a microplane, and so it gets very, very fluffy, very, very airy. But there's not a whole lot of cheese by weight. And we will give this a little stir. Oh, love this. Absolutely love this. Mm. Mm. Those cherry tomatoes are so sweet. They have less acid than the bigger tomatoes, so you get a lot more of the sweetness coming through. You get the fragrance of the basil, even though you don't see any green in here. And by the way, if you don't have any basil kicking around, you can use a little bit of fresh parsley. You can use a little bit of dry oregano. It's certainly not an excuse not to make this dish. So anything that you happen to have that you can substitute, by all means, go ahead. But this is one of those really comforting, it's a simple dish. It's a very, very comforting dish. Lots of veggies in here. And like I said, the culpa that I use, completely optional. But you get that, it just adds a little bit of savoriness to the dish. Absolutely phenomenal. I do hope you try it. Do share, like, and subscribe. And I will see you on the next one.